couple of minutes delay in going live for this town hall. This one is an important one. This one we're speaking about small business. We're going to be speaking about how you're going to rebound from this period, and then we're going to speak about how to come out more resilient. I'm very excited to have some very special guests here with us today. But before we get into that, I want to talk about what the governor mandated for New York. And people, there's different feelings and emotions about that, but let's talk about it. One, from starting, the governor announced yesterday that anyone that anytime that you are out in public or you cannot maintain social distancing protocols 6 feet away from people, like the subways, like food shopping or what have you, you are to wear a face covering. What does that mean? That means that you're supposed to wear something over your nose and mouth. So even if you don't have a mask, you're supposed to wear a face covering. Very important, even if you're not sick and people feel, some people feel like this is an overstepping of government. Even if you're not sick or what have you, it is not about you. It's about the most vulnerable. So please abide by it. Very important. Number two, the governor extended the pause, meaning, the social distancing and the stay at home and the non-essential businesses being closed for another month until May 15th. The good news is that the curve is flattening, but we all have to be in this together. This is not easy. We recognize it's not easy, but please, let's all be in this together. All right, let's get going. Let's get started. Today we're talking about small business. We're talking about, we have some powerful guests here. I'm going to introduce them really soon. But we are speaking about things in the context of coronavirus and where we are. There's been a lot of conversation about the effect of coronavirus on the African-American community, how it's affecting us with health, how it's affecting us with business. And I'd like to, folks have said before coronavirus, when America catches a cold, we get pneumonia. Did we think this was going to be an exception with coronavirus? Even if that's the case, what do we do with that information and what do we do with it? I want to speak about, now keep in mind, I represent government and everyone here is government. Government has to make sure that we have the proper programs to bring us through. People are going to talk about PPP. We're not the federal government, but we can talk about that a little bit, right? The Payroll Protection Program. It was announced today that the money ran out. No more money in that program now. New York City came out with a number of different programs, a zero interest loan program, a grant program if you can prove that you have experienced a certain percentage of business loss due to coronavirus. That money is also, again, we're dealing with limited resources. But what's very important is with this transfer of wealth, we have to make sure that our communities and our businesses get their fair share. And that's our job to make sure we do. We have to make sure that we do that. Everyone here on this phone has to make sure that we do that. And we're going to talk about that, but also we're going to speak about your accountability and how your businesses become more resilient after coronavirus and the mindset that we are to have. So first I want to introduce Deputy Mayor Thompson. Deputy Mayor Thompson is the Deputy Mayor of Strategic Policy and Initiatives. He is in charge of and responsible for spearheading a number of diverse collective priority initiatives, anywhere from Democracy NYC to MWBE program to the Mayor's Office of Workforce Development. Prior to being the deputy mayor, he was an associate professor of urban planning at MIT in Massachusetts. He also authored a book called The Double Trouble, Black Mayors, Black Communities, and the Struggle for Deep Democracy, that was published in 2006. Deputy Mayor, I'd like to start off with not just government stuff. What is your perspective on the effect of coronavirus on the African-American community?
Well, thank you very much for having me this evening, and it's really an important conversation, and I'm really grateful to be part of it. My perspective is really colored by working in New Orleans for 3 years, going back and forth after Katrina, and working in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, after the earthquake there. And what I saw in both places actually was the same thing. And that is, the people who needed help the most didn't get it. And the people who were already better off and came out best out of these catastrophes were the ones who got the money. So in New Orleans, if you weren't a homeowner and in good standing, you didn't get bailed out by federal money. And 72% of Black people were renters, and those who weren't renters weren't considered in good standing, and they got nothing. And hundreds of thousands never even got to come back home after the flood. In Haiti, billions of dollars came into Haiti in the Port-au-Prince, but the people who really were suffering and didn't have housing and didn't have anything saw very little of that money. In fact, you know, years later, you wonder where the money went, because you don't see how it went to help the people in the community. So my perspective is really colored by that. And I think my biggest concern is that that doesn't happen here in New York. And what you said earlier, that we fight for the principle of those who get hardest hit get the most help.
Wow. I had no idea you were going to take us there. You took us to Katrina, to Haiti, and finding those parallels of that the most hit didn't get, we have to get back. That's a conversation in and of itself, my goodness. Wow. I have to bring in Brother Jonnel Davis, who is the Senior Advisor for MWBE, for Minority Women-Owned Business Enterprise Program in New York City, running one of the biggest programs for municipalities across the country for minority women-owned businesses. Brother Jonnel, how do you see the state of MWBEs after COVID?
Assemblyman, thank you so much for having us and for this so important discussion. And a big shout out to my deputy mayor, who is that's what we get every day, man. So you know, if we didn't understand where we're at, that we're reminded every day. So I'm eternally grateful to him for his leadership and guidance and sort of directing our work. You know, the key for me for MWBE's post-COVID really is the ability for diversification. And I'm saying that to say because in our current structure and system, as we go through opportunities that MWBEs are participating in, we've got quite a few MWBEs getting contracts right now to help us through this COVID crisis. They just told me we got about 158 contracts out for MWBEs, about 60 million or so, and it's growing every day. But the challenge that I think a lot of our MWBEs face is that we are very stagnant and we're sort of locked into a particular skill set that we don't think can be used for something else. Perfect example. We are right now working with manufacturers who normally are fashion designers to make masks because of the need. You know, you have to be willing to be flexible enough to diversify what you do in order to help folks. We have IT folks who normally do services who are now also supplying IT equipment. That's a diversification. And that's something that we also encourage our MWBEs to do, because you just never know what is going to be needed. You have to just be willing to diversify what you do. And the other thing is, and I think you're going to talk about this in a little bit, is about digitizing what you do. Now, I'm going to get very basic. A lot of our firms still don't have a very good website. A lot of our firms don't really have good social media presence. A lot of our firms still don't really take the time to invest in marketing and those kinds of things, because if the whole world is going to be digitized and everything, all the transactions is going to be over the internet, etc., I'm telling you, we're looking for folks who are able to adapt to that, folks who are able to provide services. We got DOE right now. Kids are not in school. Somebody's got to teach them. Somebody's got to maintain those servers. Somebody's got to figure out ways to, get to those young people with creative programming and so forth and so on. So I'm just saying, like, those are three things I think MWBs need to be able to do in the coming age, like the after COVID.
That's a very good point, and we're going to get into that. One of the things many folks that are entrepreneurs or businesses in the minority community and in the immigrant community, and I am of Haitian background, so I can speak to this, are drivers. Drive taxis, drive gypsy cabs, drive Uber, and that is, that's what helped feed my family, get me to my point, because that's what my dad did growing up. Sonia Guior is the director of Inter-Governmental Affairs for TLC. Sonia, how do you see drivers getting through coronavirus? Are there opportunities even at this time during coronavirus? And what are the opportunities for drivers after this period? We may have lost Sonia, so I'll get back to her. So let me get into, Deputy Mayor, I didn't know you were gonna go deep on me like that, the way you did. Oh my goodness. So let's go there a little bit. I didn't go there, not only he teaches at MIT, so what did I expect? But one thing I want to talk about is mindset. What's the proper mindset? What can we control? Deputy Mayor, people received their stimulus check. Many folk received their stimulus check this week, and some are going to be receiving more. And there's conversation on social media, there's conversation in the world, and I see folk going, even during this time, spending the money on the wrong things. What should we be doing with that money? And what kind of mindset should we be having at this point? Us, the people. Forget about the government did or what have you. The people. Can you speak to that?
That's a great question. I would just say two things. One is collectivity, and the second thing is strategy. So collectivity. In New Orleans, after the flood, foundations came into the city and divided it into 40 pieces, and then had communities across the city fighting and competing with each other for money. And they said, whichever one has the best plan will get a little bit of money, but the 49 who don't get anything. And so people started fighting each other over small pieces of money and didn't really unite to say, we demand justice from the federal government. We want money to do what this plan, that we all agree around. That never happened. In Haiti, literally 10,000 nonprofits came into Haiti and did the same thing. And the people didn't organize, weren't together, and no one helped them organize and get together either. You know, all the outsiders were coming in with their little projects, and they all were getting paid too, by the way. So I think the key thing for us is actually to come together and have some strategies on what we're going to do. A lot of businesses are in danger of going under, and if we don't have any strategy, then outsiders are going to just come in and swoop up properties at discount prices, and we'll be in trouble.
Wow, wow, wow. That's very true. Again, I'm of Haitian descent, so I know that right after the earthquake in 2010, I went the day after. And I saw, what was going on over there, and then I saw what was going on with respect to the rebuilding, which never, forget about that. But to see that there is, how much, the people that needed the resources the most didn't get it. But on the other side too, the people didn't coordinate themselves well enough to be able to be in the position to be able to take advantage of their rebuilding. So right. there is the accountability of, as the deputy mayor said, of coming together, coalescing collectively with a strategy and a plan. Now, Jonnel, one of the things we were talking about, and I didn't talk about, before I get to you, Jonnel, Deputy Mayor, tell me about about putting banking services on the NYC, the ID NYC program.
Well, we have been working on an initiative which, right now is being delayed because of the whole NYC ID program. We can't enroll anyone at the moment. But we have been organizing to put a banking chip option on the NYC ID card so that those who have the card or get the card and want to bank using the card would be able to do so, and they would have a chip that you could use on the subway or the bus, as well as use to buy goods in stores or, for whatever purpose. The same thing you see on Visa or MasterCard and, these other things would be on the NYC ID card. And the real good thing about it was because there are over 1 million users of the card, we've been able to negotiate really discount rates to access financial services. And it would save most people over $1,000 a year. And then on top of that, we're able to negotiate profit sharing with whoever the vendor is. And so there would be a fund that would go back into communities as a result of people using the card.
So this would be a way also to close the gap of the unbanked and underbanked.
Absolutely. That's a majority of all Black and Latino households are either unbanked or underbanked. So this was a way of getting at that. And moving forward, we need to have the same kind of approach for small businesses in terms of getting them online, as you were saying earlier, as Jonnel was saying, getting them into the digital space. And I guess we'll talk about that later.
So that transitions me to Jonnel. So many of our small businesses, Jonnel, are cash businesses. How do we address that?
Yeah, many of them are cash businesses. And, I think it's going to be a change I think you started off here in mindset. And I think we have to make it easier, first of all, for folks to access online services. Also, we have to speak with the providers, who bring these services into our communities to have specific resources for small businesses. I think that's important because right now there's a cost factor to that. Also, when you utilize electronic services, sometimes the store is charged, and sort of negotiating, I think, as the deputy mayor is speaking about, finding ways for us to collectively deal with some of these challenges as what, you know, the cost to doing business online, and there's a cost associated. So I think the first thing is the mindset challenge. And you got, you know, if you've been, you know, if your barbershop, like my, you know, these guys, they've been accepting, you know, cash all the time, you know, from 20, 30, 40 years, you go to the barber, same thing, cash. Here's a 20, is a 10, is a whatever. Now I give a lot of props to barbershops because one, these guys, I gotta get an appointment now in an app if I want to go see them, which is also important. So you see that, you know, in some of our, particularly on appointments and sort of direct customer contact and relations, you're seeing the shift. But I think also we need to figure out ways to get the providers to give some negotiation to the small businesses to make it easier for them to get the resources in the community. And then secondly, we've got to help folks change the mindset, say, hey, this is the new way of doing things. You are more profitable because more folks have access to you. Because I don't know about you, I seldomly walk with cash these days. I really don't. Everybody's using a card. So if you don't accept cards, I don't go to your store. So we have to show the economic impact and the viability of using electronic devices, cards, et cetera, for folks to actually know that this is a business proposition, an economic proposition that you can actually excel, grow your business and scale it once you diversify. But first, we got to deal also with the companies that are bringing in the services. You got to talk to them. We have to also change the mindset of our folks, but also at the end of the day, we have to show them that this is economically viable and important for their livelihood, and it gives them an opportunity to scale up.
Great points. Great points. Sonia, good.
Yes.
Happy to see you're on with us. Sonia, I am Haitian. My dad drove the taxi cab. TLC was a big deal for us, you know, coming up. And when TLC would come down with their rules or regulations or what have you, the reason why I'm a lawyer was because I represented my dad as a kid in front of TLC proceedings.
Wow.
That's what made me come into this. So tell us about the state of drivers, because of many of the minority community are still driving, and many men and women are driving today. So tell us about how coronavirus is affecting this industry.
Sure. So thank you again for having me, and I apologize for my technical difficulties beforehand. You know, we're seeing a lot of impacts on the industry. You know, we have a tremendous amount of respect for the men and women who have been driving still, have been helping out their communities. I wanted to speak a bit to your earlier question as well, to some opportunities that drivers can take right now. We've been communicating with drivers pretty consistently via email to let them know about any new opportunities that we find. Anytime we find something new that we think is useful, we let our drivers know. About a week ago, we emailed all of our drivers about an SB1 partnership with Small Business Services. So this is a way for drivers to connect to jobs through small business services. So drivers can connect with jobs such as Amazon Fresh, Fresh Direct, delivery jobs, things that they're already able to do with the vehicles that they own or lease. And they can be connected to other available positions through SB1. So we're really encouraging drivers, if that sounds interesting to them, to reach out to Small Business Services. And we did email that link to drivers, but I also have it with me now in case that's useful. Anyone can email me afterwards. We also have our TLC delivery program, which you may have heard of. Drivers are able to make deliveries to homebound New Yorkers. They'll receive $15 an hour for this work. It's available citywide, so drivers can sign up. We have an online portal. And that work is still available and so appreciated for those New Yorkers who need those meals. So I think I'll leave it there for now and see if other questions.
Wow, thanks a million. And it's great to know that there are, you know, we're concerned about folks being exposed during this time, you know, but we're also, at the same time, we're also, you know, concerned about economic opportunities, even during this time. And I try to let folks know that you can still make money during this time, and driving is an option and an opportunity. So thank you for that. Deputy Mayor, since I have you here, I'm gonna get to some tough questions, bro. And you haven't shied away from this stuff. How can we, in New York, where we have a lot of resources in New York, and I don't know about the rest of the world, we have a lot of resources in New York. We have a lot of people of color that sit in high positions that we sit in, that you sit in, that I sit in. How do we make sure that we come off on the other side of coronavirus better off?
Well, again, I would say collectivity and strategy. And it's true, we have some Black faces in high places, some brown faces in high places. But at the end of the day, if we aren't together, we'll get picked off and we're not going to get very far. So I think the first thing is for us to put our egos on the shelf and really figure out how we come together and have some combined strategies we all work together around. The most important right now, I think, is at the federal level. In the CARES Act, which was the bill Congress passed recently in response to the pandemic, the airlines industry got $58 billion. And New York City, which is on the front line, got $1.2 billion. So 58 to 1. New York has fed 10 million people. The airlines haven't fed anybody. And they got $58 billion. So I think first thing we have to do is make sure we're all pushing hard in New York and nationally, that the money that comes out of the federal government, and we all pay taxes, goes to the people who are hardest hit. And that needs to be a principle that sticks also at the state level and at the city level. And we need to be insistent upon that. And that's what I'm going to be fighting for. But I need everybody. And I'm sure you need everybody in Albany. We all have to be on that page. I would say that's the most important thing.
Great point. During these times, there are trillions with a T, trillions that are going to be and that have been dispersed. And we are in the epicenter in this country of who is most affected. And we have to make sure that we properly fight for this stuff, and we have to properly fight for where is most affected, and that we come out. And we don't want to be in a position where before coronavirus, African Americans' wealth was the lowest in America. It was projected before coronavirus that in 20 or 30 years will be worth average negative.
Right.
Negative.
Mm-hmm.
We can use this period to reset. And we must do that.
If I could just add a point to that, and I know Jonnel is very much on top of this issue. The money that came out for small businesses in the CARES Act went to the biggest banks and went to the preferred customers of the biggest banks. And they don't make loans really to a lot of Black businesses, small businesses. We're not, one of their preferred customers, and usually don't show up at all. We have to use this as an opportunity to actually put capital into our community lending institutions. And we also have to use it, as you were saying earlier, to make sure that our small businesses can access online, that can do their accounting online, that they can actually share resources online. We need to use this as an opportunity to change that dynamic. And I'll give you another statistic. Black folks had 2% of the wealth of the nation 3 years after slavery in 1868. Today, Black folks have 2% of the wealth of the nation. Where we were in 1868. So this is a wake-up call for us too.
Wow. Wow. Brother Jonnel. So with that, as far as, you know, getting the money with the CARES Act and banking with small minority businesses, what is the state of that as the deputy mayor spoke about?
Yeah, so thank you. I think a few things. One, we know SBA loans that go out, 28% of them are minority businesses. We know in the city, with what we do, over 52% or so or more for folks on the small business side we engage with are minority businesses. We know 48% of business owners in New York City are foreign born, like me, from someplace else, and a business owner came and are looking to grow and do some work here and do business here. We also know that, and I always talk about from my personal experience with this as a small business owner, when I went to my bank, when I was banking with for years and went to the folks who were, you know, taking my money and as a big bank, everybody know, I'm not going to call their name because I'm still trying to get them to give us some money to help our businesses. But I went to them and I said, I need a loan for my business. And I was told that even though I had the contracts, even though I had the capital, even though I had the good credit score, that somehow my business didn't fit a profile. And so that particular entity told me no. I had to go to what the deputy mayor said. Axion is a CDFI, a community development financial institution. That's who gave me my loan. Unfortunately, it was a high interest at the time, and I gave the loan back in 2 months. And then after I paid it back in 2 months, when it's supposed to be a year, the same bank that told me no sent me a line of credit for, I think it was $100,000. I didn't need $100,000. First of all, how do you know that I did this? So they were tracking you, right? And all of a sudden you become bankable after a CDFI takes a risk on you and they see that you're good for it. My story is not any different than any other small business because they also are going through the same thing right now. The CARES Act sort of exasperated that and showed in a real way why MWBEs and small businesses are struggling, because we know that it's harder for us to get loans. We know that it costs more to get loans, meaning our interest rates are higher. We know that the terms are inflexible, meaning that they don't really give us enough time to pay back, and it's punitive. If you miss one payment, it's over. You know, I mean, so we are at the city, of course, created our contract finance loan fund. If you're an MWBE, get $1 million from us in a year at 3%. That's based on that experience I had. And also we have for developers, we have a fund for them, and we got a bond program. All these things sort of created to help MWBEs. But right now, the state of Black business in particular and Latino businesses is dire, because the financial industry still looks at us differently. Less than 0.2% of venture capitalists went to Black women last year. 0.2%, right? When Black women added more jobs to the economy than anybody else, 350,000 in the last decade or so, when they are the most successful and fastest growing businesses, but yet 0.2% of venture capitalist dollars going to them. So what are we saying? We're saying that there's a mismatch. And so we had to hold our financial institutions accountable. And with the CARES Act, it's the same thing. The Deputy Mayor said, if you are a preferred customer, first of all, you have to be a preferred lender. And if you're a 7(a) preferred lender, that means you're generally a big bank or a CDFI or something that actually works in the community. The challenge of the CDFIs in the CARES Act, those who were 7(a) lenders, they didn't have, because of, you know, all the loans in default now, or loans being for long because folks don't have jobs and market is not going, they don't have the liquidity. So they couldn't even really participate at the level that they should have participated. And so where do those businesses go? They have to go jumping around to find a big bank or a big lending institution that will lend to you even if you're not their customer. Now, how they wrote the loan program is that it's a higher risk for them. They have to certify that who you are. So no, like the banks are like, I'm not going to certify somebody I don't know. And the next thing I'll end on this, even if you are banking with that particular bank, you got to think about it. Think about it. I'm a banker there. Some of the banks said you need to have a credit facility with us. What does that mean? You have to have a credit card, line of credit, or something like that for us to even consider you. Even if you had a regular business checking account, you don't qualify, and you're their customer. So I think we have to really, and I think the federal government right now, our Senator Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are really pushing this home in the next stimulus 4. That CDFIs, I think they're trying to set aside $50 billion or something like that for them to do the exact same thing we're talking about. Address the business on the ground in the community that the big banks are not addressing, or the even if you have an account with the bank, you can't get it because you don't have a credit facility that they can pull on if you don't pay back. And that is, I gotta, I don't want to say criminal, but it is about that. It's infuriating because these banks, I believe, some of them are taking advantage of folks and just ignoring others.
Wow. Listen, you said what really needs to be said. One of the things that we've been fighting for, as we said too, with the stimulus too that may be coming in, is that we've bailed these big banks out time and time again. We've bailed big business out.
Yeah.
Look,
yeah.
And at this time, when we're asking to make sure that they look out for small business, the policies in place make it impossible for many small businesses to compete. Now, all of a sudden, as Jonnel says, I do this with you, I have this kind of relationship with you, and you don't know me, you don't recognize
Don't know me. Yeah.
We cannot allow that to happen.
Yeah.
One of the things we have to do is what's a blessing is that we do have the mechanisms where we have these smaller community organizations that have the relationships with the smaller businesses to do that. And that's something, that's a fight that we're going to continue to do. We should have something strictly on that, because that's something that we could go on and on about, and that's happening right now. And that
Absolutely.
is just almost criminal. Now, Sonia, I want to talk about business opportunities for the average person. That's easy, where you can get in. And I believe that the sharing economy allows very little friction to go from not having money to becoming an entrepreneur. Driving for the rideshare apps is an option that a lot of people have. Unfortunately, in New York City, new people can't come in to become, and I think that's still the case, to drive for rideshare apps. How long is that going to go for? Is that still an issue? I just have to tell you that I signed up to be a driver for rideshare to see what it was like, and I couldn't even do it in New York City. I had to drive, and I'm still a driver now. I had to drive in Albany for these different apps. I can't even do it in my own city. So if I wanted to make extra money right now, I would have to drive all the way up into Albany to do it. What's happening in New York City?
So we do have a rule in place that limits the number of for-hire vehicle plates that are put on the road, but there are exceptions. If a driver wanted to drive a wheelchair accessible vehicle or an electric vehicle, they could purchase those vehicles, and any driver who wishes to drive could also lease a vehicle that already has TLC license plates on that. I understand that the apps, Uber and Lyft, may not be accepting new drivers right now. I'm not sure if that's currently in place, if that's still in place with all of the craziness that's going on. We have heard from drivers who have been driving for all of the other car services. There are hundreds and hundreds of other car services in the city. But in terms of the apps, I actually don't know right now if they're currently accepting new drivers, but that is something I could look into and follow up.
Yeah, one thing I find is that, at this point I believe we need to have as little friction to get folks to be able to make money. And I do understand that the exceptions are pretty onerous. right? If you can, for you to be able to do the ride share, you'd have to have a wheelchair accessible car, or or creating a system where you can lease an already approved car with tags. We're putting up now. Those tags are becoming something that is an asset now, because now we're creating a scarce scarcity with respect to being able to drive or what have you. But
Sure.
I'm concerned about that, because I think these different platforms allow people easy way to be able to, you're not gonna get rich, but you're gonna be able to get a couple of dollars, and if you work hard, you can be able to get some more.
Sure. And that is part of the reason why I wanted to emphasize the Small Business Services Partnership, because now, there aren't as many people who are looking for trips just because everyone's social distancing, or many people are. And so we're hoping that many drivers who don't necessarily own a TLC licensed vehicle can still do deliveries or take part in some of that work. But I really appreciate that.
Okay. Now we're gonna wrap up pretty soon, but I have some questions from the viewers. I have a question. I guess Jonnel, you'd probably be the best one to answer this. Is your office still open, and can people still apply for I guess certification even during this time?
Absolutely. We have not closed. We're 24/7. It feels like, because the emergency work and the procurements and the management and the compliance and all that, and plus our regular work, we have to still do. So we are open. You can still apply for certification. You just go to the SBS website. And you can get that information. Also, you can, our email address is contact@mwbe.nyc.gov, and we'll take care of you. contact@mwbe.nyc.gov.
Okay, this message is for the deputy mayor. I guess, deputy mayor, they're looking at you like you're the mayor, because you're the deputy mayor. So, deputy mayor, when will everything come back to normal? When will businesses be open again?
I don't think anyone knows the answer to that right now, because we have to do testing in order to assess whether or not it's safe for people to congregate. And the mayor every day is calling on the federal government to step up and to provide more resources for testing. But until there's widespread testing in place, it's dangerous to start bringing people together and do business as usual. So we'll get there, but right now it's not going to happen in the next month. We know that for sure. And, it will be, I'm sure, a phased approach as testing capacity increases.
That's right. As I stated earlier in the opening, the governor extended the New York State pause until May 15th. And also at this point, we are working regionally with Connecticut, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania. So there's going to be a coordinated, response towards that. So I guess we're going to close and have some final words. This conversation is, I'm very excited that I had you folks, everyone here. So let's start off with Sonia. You want to talk about resources where people get information about TLC and what things for drivers to know?
Sure. So we just updated our TLC website today, actually, with a bunch of resources that drivers can benefit from. I won't read them all out here. I'm sure you know about some of them, but I do want to let drivers know that through the Federal CARES Act, drivers can apply for unemployment if they need to. Previously, independent contractors were excluded. And so for those drivers who are employees, they can apply for unemployment benefits as usual. And for drivers who are independent contractors, you can apply for what's called pandemic unemployment assistance. It's very similar you can just go to the New York State Department of Labor website, or you can call, have the number 1-888-209-8124 to sign up for unemployment benefits. And I did want to let drivers know that because that was something that was not available before. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Jonnel, what should, what should my MWBEs and small businesses look out for?
So I want to give you our website, small business website, that all of our resources are listed there. So it's nyc.gov/COVID-19 biz. And that is nyc.gov COVID-19 BIZ. And so make sure you go there, and all the resources are listed there that the city has and others have. I just also wanted to say that some nonprofits and CDFIs also have business resources. I don't know, maybe we can send it to you, Assembly Member, and we can post it. But I know Renaissance has a fund. You can get $50,000 from them at 3% fixed rate, 6 months deferment. That means you will get the loan, but you start paying in 6 months. We also know that LIST has a program, I believe about 10,000 you can get on that program. True Fund is one of our MWBE partners, CDFI partners. You can get 10,000 loans and also up to 75,000 at 3%. And I know like the federal government program is stalled right now from taking applications, but we know a stimulus 4 is coming. And so I think they're talking $250 billion to help small business and infusion, and they're fighting right now. So just keep talking to your financial institution. Make sure if your financial institution does not have or is not participating, you need to ask them for who they have as an agent, because they have agents or other institutions who are actually facilitating the loan process, even if they are not as a bank. You get that? So ask your bank, just whoever you bank, say, are you participating in the 7A program? If not, who's your agent, so that you can send this to them, and they will send you to another facility, another bank that they can help. And last thing I'll say is what I said before, our email, all MWBEs, our office is up and running. We haven't stopped since this start, and we won't end until it's over. Contact at mwbe.nyc.gov. Contact at mwbe.nyc.gov. Thank you.
And Deputy Mayor, you're gonna have to bring us home. You mentioned parallels between Katrina, parallels between Haiti. Is there hope for us in America, and is there hope for us in New York?
I think so. One of the things that I've heard members of Congress talking about recently, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke was talking about, Clark was talking about last week from Brooklyn. The House is working on an infrastructure bill to help rebuild the nation. This has been, even Trump was talking about an infrastructure bill, but he never did it. But now they're saying the nation really needs it in order to recover from the millions of jobs that are being lost, because of the virus. And in New York, we've already started a building retrofit program. And I've heard some of our people in government here in the city saying, this can be an important part of getting the economy going again. And I know this is something the state has also been pushing, NYSERDA and Con Ed and, the governor's office, et cetera. So I would say to small businesses, take this time to actually look into that, because New York has 900,000 buildings that need to be retrofitted. That's a lot of work. And there are a lot of different skills, everything from computers to doing insulation and construction, everything else. There's a lot in this. So I think there's an opportunity that's going to be there. And so get ready for it.
And on that note, we're excited. Look, there are a lot of opportunities. I want us to be ready. I want us to have the proper mindset, and we're bringing the information directly to you. You know how to contact us. Thank you for watching, and there's going to be more. If you take a look at sign up to our email list, and if you need to contact any of the august folks that are on this panel, they are available and willing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Assemblyman. It's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.